Overbooked, Cultivating a Reading Community Through Passive Literacy Programs with Megan Webb and Hugh Womack from Wake Forest University.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I know, it's so nice. Did everyone have a nice lunch? Wasn't that delicious? It was so wonderful. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for being here. Thank you for our virtual attendees for being here. And thank you especially to NCLIVE for putting this on, all the people that work there, this great conference. And it's wonderful to see faces in person again. My name is Megan Webb. I am one of the instruction outreach librarians. This is my colleague Hugh Womack, also instruction outreach librarian. A couple quick housekeeping things. So we have made these slides available on Sketch. I don't know if those are up yet on the site, but we'll also have a QR code at the end if you want to just snap a quick picture and get to them that way. So you're not frantically writing things down, or you can also frantically write things down too. So hello again. So we are instruction outreach librarians at the Z. Smith Reynolds Library at Wake Forest University. Are there any other outreach librarians in the room? Show of hands. All right, yay, yay. Yeah, even if it's not officially in your title. Yeah, or instruction librarians. Okay, yay, hi. So you sort of get a sense for kind of what we do. It's sort of a half-half split. We teach credit-bearing information literacy courses, and then we've got all four of our hands in a lot of the library programming that we do on Wake Forest campus, as well as outreach initiatives and things that we have going on there. So it keeps us busy. It keeps us out of trouble most of the time. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about some of the literacy programs that we put on, specifically our passive literacy programs and what they look like.
So this is the obligatory about us slide, which like we're all from around here. So, but you do what you have to do. But what I really want to point out on this slide that I think is interesting is that our students give us the nickname Work Forest. Now, I went to Wake Forest and have two degrees from Wake Forest, and I'm not convinced that's true. I think they just like to think it's Work Forest. And cancel that on the Zoom meeting. Don't show that to anybody else but the people in this room. But there is that sort of thought, mentality, idea going around. And the students I can vouch for the fact that they are highly programmed, right? There's lots of programming that they do. They feel like they have to have a very tight schedule. They feel like they have to fill their days. So there's a very strong perception that there is minimal free time for any kind of reading outside of the classroom, right? True or not true, exaggerated or not exaggerated, whatever you want to say, there is that feeling and that perception. But what we found in working with students, which we do in so many different capacities, is that there is a desire for that reading, right? So then how do you make that work? And that's a lot about what we're going to be talking about today.
All right. Before we jump into kind of like our own little community, sort of the needs that we've seen there, I wanted to just like take a look and just kind of like consider recreational reading, like kind of as a whole, where we are right now. So I was a little surprised. I haven't really been keeping a strong watch on this, but there were a couple of recent reports that were put out by Pew Research Center, which kind of talked about a little bit of a decline in recreational reading, both in like the adult populations and in the juvenile and child populations, which kind of surprised me because I figured like, well, over the pandemic, everyone was like me, you're just staying at home and reading, right? Not the case. And, it's about a quarter of American adults say they haven't read a book in whole or in a part within the past year. That was conducted in 2019 through 2020. And then with the recreational reading report on children, kind of looking at the like 8 to 11-year-old range, it has dwindled quite a bit. Like they kind of reported they don't read for fun anymore. It's like less common. And it was kind of like back to the numbers that they had like in the mid 1980s. So that kind of surprised me a little bit too. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. The report didn't give a lot of answers, but it kind of suggested a few things, which I thought was really interesting. So what does that mean for us? So we know, right, that there are a lot of benefits to recreational reading. We're all librarians in here. We've drunk the Kool-Aid, like we get it. So, stress relief and relaxation, improved concentration, vocabulary, working memory, and other cognitive skills. And then probably my favorite is, kind of like the practice of recreational reading and kind of a love of reading can increase your overall empathy, which is like amazing because there are not a lot of activities that can do that. So kind of like moving along and started looking at recreational reading in college. So ACRL, Association of College and Research Libraries, has acknowledged in their guidelines for collection services for academic libraries that recreational reading should be like a part of collections. If you think about our populations, they're, young adults, emerging adults, and they are kind of, figuring out what their interests are. They want to find materials that can help them learn, that can kind of broaden their horizons, that can help them expand, a particular hobby or interest or skill. So it's great to offer like recreational reading in addition to other academic materials that support their curriculum and their coursework. So we've had a browsing collection, it predates me.
Predates me.
Okay, so we've had a browsing collection for a long time. We'll just say that. And, we do see use in that collection. And there were some really interesting studies that have come out. There's a lot of awareness and kind of focus on mental health and mental well-being among children. And that also includes academic college students. And, there was a study that came out that kind of indicated that recreational reading is sort of a cost-effective way to help students cope with mental health issues and kind of stress and that kind of related thing. We also believe that our kind of like focus and initiative to kind of promote recreational reading is tied to our library's mission, which is to inspire learning, advance knowledge, and to build community on campus. So these are all kinds of like things that sort of merge together as to why we are invested in these programs.
So these passive library programs really fit a special niche. One is that we all know as a result of the pandemic, right? Everybody's sort of short-staffed and everybody's trying to do 2 or 3 different things that they weren't doing before. And so if we can find passive programming that fully meets the needs of our users, but requires less of our time, hey, that's a win. And what we've discovered is that that's exactly what these kinds of programs we're talking about today do. They not only take less of our time, they also still meet the needs of our users and manage to meet our users where they are. Not every user is going to love my approach to outreach, which is sort of in your face and loud and crazy, right? Some people just want to sort of pass by and in the fullness of time and interact with us at the level they want to. So we need to make sure we're giving them those opportunities as well. And so this is the Venn diagram I alluded to earlier, which is, we've got this sort of, I'm too busy to read outside the classroom, and I want to read outside the classroom. And our passive literacy programs hopefully are the overlap in that Venn diagram.
All right. So the 3 programs that we put on that we're going to sort of talk about in depth today are Blind Date with a Book, Free Little Libraries, and ZSR Reviews. And, these are all programs, I want to say like within the past, like 8 years or so, we've kind of been like regularly offering and promoting. So we're going to share a bit with sort of like, where the inspiration comes from this, how we set it up, sort of like, nuts and bolts, how it happens, and kind of what our takeaways from those have been. So the first one we're going to talk about is Blind Date with a Book. This is a much beloved program on campus. Every time we offer it, all the feels. Every time we offer it, I have students that come up to me, that since I've been involved, and they just say, "This is amazing. This is my favorite program on campus." And we have students that like look forward to it every year now that they know, because we offer it consistently on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and we kind of pitch it as like a program for book love. And also kind of like the blind date, like matching someone up kind of falls on that. Although, Valentine's Day is this whole thing. We're not up here to talk about that, but, so Blind Date with a Book, a lot of, kind of just like, support that we've gotten from the community, from the students. And I have yet to work a blind date with a book where we did not match all the books. So we started out, like, I think we would start out with, a collection. If we got close to 100, we felt, oh gosh, we've got 75 books to give away. We've got 90 books to give away. And then it was 200. And then this past year we gave away 400, which is like a lot. So you can sort of see how things have grown progressively with this. And whoops, I'm going in the wrong direction. There we go. So it is kind of this like event that happens, and it's kind of this underground group, and sort of people are like looking forward to it and kind of have it marked down on their calendar. So we don't do a whole lot of like marketing and promotion. It's very much like we just kind of want it to be a pop-up thing, but we do have those students who know what's going on and who tell all their friends, oh, stop by the library tomorrow, get your book. And we got a lot of really positive response from students. So we've had the event written up a couple times in Old Gold and Black, which, anything that can make it into the student newspaper on the student radar, we'll consider that a success. Well, the good things, right? That make it in the student newspaper. So basically we, collect a bunch of materials, wrap them up to conceal, the title, the author, write out a short description on the front of the wrapping to indicate sort of what the item is, and then students can come by and pick one up at their leisure. And we usually have students, like the top picture up there, you can see students sort of like looking down. Like we have students that spend many, many minutes just kind of like looking through all the options that they have. They got like their little pile and they're like, oh, can we take more than one? And yeah, so it's fun to watch them pick. So a little behind the scenes. So we've had like campus partners and departments kind of like express an interest in us, like, oh, we want to do blind date with a book. Can we do that? Our program is in a week or so. And we're just like, oh, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make this event happen. So I mentioned we had given away like 400 books in last February. So, collecting books is a big part of this. So we've done this a few different ways. So we've, most recently we partner with our local independent bookstore to use extra advanced reader copies. So they will receive like, a bundle of advanced reader copies from publishers, and ones that they don't use or that they have left over, they will donate to us and we can use them for our blind date with a book program, which is great. We've also in the past used credit at our local used bookstore. So, when we receive donations, if they aren't things that we could use for this event, like popular fiction, popular nonfiction, we get a lot of academic texts. And if they're not things that are going directly into the collection, or if there's like a specific need that they're going to fill, instead of just like tossing them out, we'll bring them to our used bookstore and get credit for those. And so we would like build up credit and then go in a lot of times with our student advocate group, which I'll talk about. We would take them with us and purchase books at the used bookstore with the credit that we have. So we try to do as much as we can with keeping cost in mind. So cost down a little bit. We also would receive donations from community members. So we would, when we started out, we would just kind of email the library like, hey, are you cleaning out your bookshelf? Or do you have any like, gently used fiction, nonfiction, popular books that you'd be willing to donate? And a big thing with collecting the books, and something that we've definitely been focusing on recently, is making sure we have a diversity of selection. So I'm talking diversity of genres, topics, and voices that are available for the books that we're giving out. And we even identify, like I think you can see in that picture up there, it's kind of hard, but we'll identify like own voices materials with a sticker on the title, and explain that to students as they're kind of looking through like, well, what does that mean? And sort of giving them an idea for, we're really trying to represent as much diversity in this reading collection as we can. So that's kind of collecting the books. And we really do start like months in advance to kind of get a good stockpile of books going. And then my favorite part is prepping the blind dates. So we have to wrap the books, create descriptions for the books, and get all of that kind of done before our February 14th, our V-Day deadline. And that's a lot of fun, but we could not do this because it's not just you and I, we rely heavily on our student advocacy group. So we have a group of students that work with us called the ZSR ambassadors. And they're basically like volunteer students that do everything from like giving us feedback. They're an available focus group. They help us with outreach and programming. And one thing, a lot of them really like to do is come wrap books for Blind Date with a Book. So we, bring them in. We have like a little space in our office where they can get that done. We've also like kind of made it sort of like a party where we're like book a room, bring in some snacks, have them wrap books. And we also too, have had ZSR faculty and staff help us with this as well in the past. And it's kind of like, many hands make light work. It's definitely that vibe going on with prepping our blind dates. And I mentioned, the preparations start months in advance. So we are collecting books like even before the end of the fall semester, trying to get that stockpile built for books that we want to give away. And ours is surely not the only model. I know there's a lot of other libraries out there that do offer like blind date with book programs. Are there any people in here that their library has? Okay, good. I'm seeing a few hands. Good. All right. So 5 hands or so. So, there are different models. I know I've linked to some of the libraries here in North Carolina and some of the local libraries. So where we are in Forsyth County, the Louisville Public Library and the Walkertown Branch Library, both in Forsyth County Public Library systems, have like a blind date with a book program that they've offered in the past. And usually they're wrapping like actual library books from the collection. And they do some kind of like a follow-up survey where you can sort of, provide feedback on how you felt about your blind date, and then you're entered to win like a prize in their raffle, which I think is a really kind of fun and unique way for them to, gather feedback from their community and also to provide kind of a fun way of doing readers advisory, right? And then I know that Malaprop's bookstore in Asheville, North Carolina, so one of my favorite independent bookstores, they also have like a blind date with a book shelf where they've kind of wrapped books that they're selling, and Bookmarks, which is a local bookstore in our town, also does the same. So there are many models out there. I've also seen people do blind date with a book in little free libraries, which he was going to talk about in a minute, which is kind of like an interesting merger of two things that we're familiar with. But there are so many models of how to do this, with different ranges of budgets. So, but it's a really fun way, and students really get into it. I think just everyone in general, like you really love that idea of like passing on a good book or a good narrative. And if you're like looking to find something, it's a really fun and exciting way to kind of find your next favorite read.
And to just elaborate on what Megan was saying, I think we really today want to make sure that there's some element you can pull out of what we're talking about that you can apply at your institution, at your library, right? Just because we do it this way doesn't mean there's not another take on it. And I'm about to talk about a very unusual take on the concept of little free libraries. So we've all heard of little free libraries, right? Well, for us at Wake, at the CSR library, they have been this 9-year journey. And I promise I won't take 9 years to tell it, but it's interesting because when it started, it was terrible. I mean, it was terrible. We made fun of it in the library. So when it started, the Library Partners Press, which some of you may know Bill Kane, who ran that, he's recently retired, decided he wanted to put a little free library in the ZSR library. And so we put it inside of our Starbucks, which is no longer a Starbucks. That's a whole nother presentation. Isn't it? It's a whole nother presentation. How to get a local coffee company into your library instead of a big national chain next year. So it was this, I'll be honest with you, it was small, it was ugly, it was in a terrible location, and nobody interacted with it, right? It was a little free library bolted to a bench, right? And it was in a corner and it was dark and nobody did anything with it. And very few people interacted with it and no one managed it. Now, fast forward 7 years, it sits in that corner. 7 years go by, right? I need some sort of graphic of the time passing, right? Okay, so the pandemic hits and we take one of our 24-hour rooms and we put in these amazing digital lockers, which I'm sure some of you are using at your institutions now. So when people check out stuff, we pull it, we put it in a digital locker, you swipe your ID, the locker opens up, you take your stuff and you go. And it's been a boon to mankind as far as we're concerned during the pandemic, right? And that 24-hour space got hugely popular all of a sudden, right? Hugely popular. we thought, why don't we put something else in it to, give people something to do? So we started adding services. So we had one printer in there, we put in two, then we put in a public workstation. We already had a napping room upstairs. That's a whole nother presentation, the napping room upstairs. So we put it in there and suddenly it's popular and people are pulling books from it. And we're like, we've got to put more books in the little free library. Wait, we've never put more books in the little free library. What's going on here? Well, for one thing, we started stocking it with the advanced reader copies we were getting from Bookmarks. And just one more time, shout out to all your independent bookstores because they are incredible. And the advanced reader copies that we get from Bookmarks make 2 of our 3 programs possible, right, that we're talking about today. So we had so much, so many titles left over from Blind Date with a Book that we were able to say, you know what, we could stock some of those in these little free libraries. So we start stocking it. Well, it gets even more popular. Well, then the dean of the library says, I'm going to offer out these things called innovation grants. And if you've got any wild ideas you want to try, and I mean, we are nothing but wild ideas, like all day, every day. So we put in for a little free library in the library that would be the formal, registered with this metal box called a library box. And we put it on a cart and we registered it as a mobile library. And Megan's even taken it on the road and been truly a mobile little free library to take it to events. And we start stocking it and the crowd loves it. And we're like, well, maybe we need more than one of these. So then the next thing you know, we're over at the Wellbeing Center on campus and we get another innovation grant from the library and we spend another, couple $100 on one of these metal boxes and the Wellbeing Center loves it. And we assign students to keep it stocked. So they come to the students who work for us, come to the library, pull some stuff off of the leftovers from the advanced reader copies and they haul over and fill up the little free library in the Wellbeing Center. And then we got crazy again. And we're like, well, why not put one at our downtown campus, Wake downtown at the School of Engineering and the med school? We called them up and sure enough, they're like, that's a great idea. We'd love to have one. So now we've got 3 of these floating around on campus that are always running out of books, right? I think it's amazing to tell a story that started 9 years ago and was crap for 7 years. And now suddenly is this like really popular going concern that people, I'll get random people walking into my office going, the little free library at the Wellbeing Center is empty. You need to get over there and restock it. And I'm like, thank you, I think. So it's been a really successful program. And again, the hardest part of that is me remembering to tell the student assistants who work for us to grab some books and haul over there and restock it. In fact, tomorrow on my calendar from 12 to 2 is to restock all 3 little free libraries because the students have left and it's just me to restock the libraries now. So, all right. And so why does this model work and how is this model different? Well, for one thing, it's the advanced reader copies that we're getting from Bookmarks, right? We aren't depending on people to bring enough books to keep it zippy and interesting and popular. We get some good books, but let me tell you, at the end of the year, a lot of students decide that they're just going to drop off all their old textbooks that aren't worth any money and leave them in the little free library. No. So tomorrow when I clean them out, I will have to clean out some schlock, that just doesn't work, right? We do not need the 10-year-old dictionary from your language class, right? That's out of here. But if any of them are resellable, we'll take them to McKay's and try to trade them in and get some credit, get some store credit to get some popular fiction. So that's one reason. We've got space to store these advanced reader copies, but we have had to fight for that space over the years and really, sort of stake any little tiny closet we can find in the building and say, we need to store books in there, right? The fact that each of the little free libraries has a student assistant assigned to it goes a long way too, because during the semester, that's just one of their duties, and they tend to keep up with it for the most part, right? So that's sort of, it's off our plate to make sure that it's operating well, that there are no issues, that there are no problems. And yet it's still being managed and maintained, which is key to it being successful, right? Somebody's got to keep an eye on it, right? Make sure it's not getting full of stuff that nobody wants to read. And again, we try to restock it at the end of every semester and once over the summer so that we completely shift. That's a lot of what I'll do tomorrow, is completely shift what's in it with one of the others so that it'll be brand new to anybody who walks up to it, right? It'll be nice and new and fresh and feel like there's lots of new content. So those are some of the things that make our model for Little Free Library a little different. But who knows? You may come up with a completely different way to model a Little Free Library that works beautifully at your institution.
Right. So the final passive program that we put on that we're sharing today is our ZSR reviews program. And the URL there goes directly to our ZSR reviews page. But this is basically like a homegrown like literary reviews program or system that we put together, where we basically receive book reviews from our community members, so faculty, staff, students, just regular community members, alums, parents, and we will display the review with the book on a very prominent shelf right across from our main service desk on the main floor of our library. And this is a really fun like program that kind of grew out of something that wasn't as successful, or that was kind of just needed a little bit of zhuzhing up, and we were able to do that. So our inspiration for this, and this again kind of sort of predates you and I. So we had a presidential fellow that worked with us many years ago. So I was just graduated senior student at Wake and was working with the library with the administrative team. And she wanted to put together this like handwritten reviews program. And I remember kind of the inspiration, because it really stuck with me, was coming from sort of like these wonderful personalized reviews that you find in bookstores, like independent bookstores, and at other libraries, where people will just kind of like staff will pull a book and write like a lovely little blurb about it, stick it on the shelf, and it really does catch your eye. So we, wanted to kind of recreate that feeling, that personalization that we get from, members of our reading community and items in the collection. And we wanted it to involve all community members. So we opened it and we kind of targeted it towards students, but we also invited faculty and staff to contribute, other librarians, community members, alum, parents, all of those people are kind of involved in this. And so since moving it to kind of a more prominent spot and really kind of dedicating a shelf to it and really sort of like promoting it and really asking people to submit reviews, we've received so many reviews from our reading community, and, across the board, students, librarians, administrators on campus, as well as alumni and parents, which I think is wonderful. And so, sometimes, we'll make it kind of thematic. So currently we have kind of like a summer reading reviews going on. Sometimes we'll do things that are a little bit more targeted on like, particular season or particular feeling, particular appeal. But we try to cover, just like all, we'll have reviews on graphic novels, we'll have reviews on poetry, collections of poetry, all different kinds of things, more academic texts, more popular texts. So it really kind of covers a good selection. And it's also really fun, like, if you see like, a colleague or a student you may know, they submit a review, it's always really nice to kind of see what they're reading and what they were so excited to share, right? And I just think that feeling of like having this really great title that you can't wait to share with someone, this is such a great way to kind of like give that to people here on our campus. So we also have partnered with some of our campus partners in putting together like thematic displays. So, and this usually is around like advocacy months, but not always. We do like different kinds of sort of displays that we put on. But recently we've kind of partnered with the Intercultural Center to put a display together for African American History Month, which is in February. And basically we kind of work with these campus partners and ask them to submit reviews of their, favorite literature that covers that theme or anything kind of within that topic or anything they want to highlight. And we will print those reviews out and put them up. We'll also too, a lot of our partners will put on, they have a lot of programming. Like we think we're good at outreach and programming. Our partners are amazing. So they'll put together like a whole month-long menu of things that they have going on, right, to celebrate this month, to celebrate, the heritage of whatever group is being highlighted. And it's just so amazing. We'll put up like a schedule and like a little QR code. And so we're hoping that, people that are coming to our review shelf are also then recognizing like, oh, these great things that are happening on campus, it's another way to sort of like share information about what's going on. So we partnered with the Intercultural Center, the Women's Center, and then the Office of Sustainability as well to kind of put on these campus partnership like displays. And I'm really hoping that we can also work with student organizations in the future and have them contribute as well. And I've always thought it would be fun to do like some April Fool's displays with librarians, like maybe books we didn't like and why, or I don't know, something fun like that. Yeah, you have a few of those. So I think that would always be fun. So it's just kind of like, it's a great way to highlight to our collection. So I don't have the actual statistics and I wish I would have gotten them before this, but anecdotally I can say, and so can our resource head of our resources department, that, materials that we display on our ZSR reviews tend to have, or on average have a higher circulation rate than the average book in the collection. So that always makes me feel good. Like they're getting some attention that they normally wouldn't get. All right, so those were our programs. And now we want to talk a little bit about a great tool that we use to kind of help with these passive literacy programs, kind of help get things managed and sort of help get basically the program kind of up and running. So we use NoveList Plus a lot, especially for blind date with a book when we're having to kind of come up with the descriptions, and we have our students use it as well because they're doing a lot of helping us out with a lot of the labor to get these books ready to go. So it's great for like, we turning books into blind dates. So like finding the right appeals, appeals factors you can apply, finding the right descriptions for the books. It's also great for suggesting read-alike. So if you wanted to put a display together, maybe with CSR, like a reviews display or any other kind of display kind of related on theme, it's great for that. It's also just a great reader's advisory tool. And I love sharing this with students too, because they always think like that was always such the magic thing. Like, how do you know all these books? How do you know what to write on all these books? Have you read them all? And I just kind of be like, well, sure. No. And I show them NoveList, and then they sit there as they're like writing things and write down little lists of books they want to read and it's really fun to watch. So, so kind of like the appeals factors. So, hopefully everyone here has used NoveList Plus. It's just so great, very intuitive. But if you're just looking up a particular book, and so a lot of our students will do this if they have a title they're not as familiar with, just to get a sense for, what's a general description, what are the appeal terms. Then I love how it links to a definition of appeal terms, because, what one student might, if they see the word like inspiring, like what exactly does that mean? Like, how is a book, inspiring, or something that provides, what's one of there, like, something that's bittersweet or compellingly lyrical, right? Like, what does that student might not recognize that? So kind of giving a description of what these terms mean is super helpful. And it really helps them kind of as they're writing descriptions out to get a sense for how can I present this book to the reader that would want this book, right? All right. And then read-alike lists, these are also great. So if you have like a book that maybe is really popular, and you want to find like some similar titles to, maybe highlight or put up on a review shelf or make a display for, they do such a great job of pulling together similar read-alikes, and you could then go in and kind of like read those appeal factors. I also found out we don't have this working on ours, but NoveList can integrate with your library catalog, so you can kind of quickly see what items you have in your collection, which is wonderful. And then this idea too of just thinking of other ways you could provide more creative, innovative readers advisory. So, browsing through recommended reading lists, looking through kind of mood-based lists, if you're looking for books that are more, engaging or more intrinsically or intricately plotted. So there are ways to kind of find a collection of books that you really want to highlight. I also really like the explore pages. So again, you can explore by themes or diversity resources or book club resources or books in the media. So kind of a great way again to sort of just explore and get ideas for like various displays you could put on, or if there's a particular like genre or topic you want to highlight. And then also to a complete list of award winners. I feel like, you know, when we're kind of filling out the descriptions for Blind Date with the Book, highlighting like awards that the book has won, or, you know, just any sort of like prominence that the book has gotten is always a good way for people to kind of clue in, because some people look for that, right? When they're selecting their books, they really want to find books that have gotten sort of a lot of attention. All right. So it looks like that is the end of our presentation. So we are hoping you guys have some questions. So we left a lot of time for some questions, or even if there's things that we can share that weren't clear. Again, thank you guys so much for coming. This is our contact information. Oh, thank you. Sweet. And we've got a full list of our works that we talked about, additional reading, and then I'll leave the credit slide up there that has a QR code to our slide. So, all right. Yes. Question.
Hi.
Hi.
That was a great presentation. I am so jealous of all those programs that you're running.
Oh, thank you.
Talk to me about the sustainability of the Little Free Library, because I don't know anybody who has a connection at a small bookstore, privately owned bookstore that can get those numbers of parks. What are your suggestions for other ways to get books?
Awesome. Thank you for your question. Okay, I'm going to repeat it for our virtual attendees. So the question was like, what is the sustainability of the Little Free Library? And like, basically, how do you amass all of these like advanced reader copies from your independent bookstore, especially if you don't already have connections? Do you want to take that one? All right.
So I will say that for a long time, we did Blind Date with a Book without the advanced reader copies, right? In fact, and we made it work, right? And how we made it work was the fact that we work in a library, because quite honestly, a call to arms to everybody is hilariously effective. Like boxes of books show up, right? You know, and even putting that out, several of us, like I know I did, reached out to our liaison faculty and said, hey, here's what we're doing in the library. And sure enough, faculty thought that was a great idea, you know, and we're so, I think that's probably how we managed those first few years. Gosh, and it was really grassroots. Thinking back, we probably could have been like meaner and asked for more money and been pushier, but we have a really, I shouldn't speak for you, but we have a really bad habit of like trying to like make a silk purse out of a sow's ear as a operating procedure, right? You know what I mean? Like doing as much as we can with as little as possible until we're just about to run ourselves into the ground. And then we're like, we ask for money and we get it. And we think we should have done that sooner, right? So I strongly encourage everybody, ask, you know, ask for the Cadillac and be happy when you get the Chevy, right?
Great question. Thank you. In the back, and then I'll come to you. Yeah. Oh, good question. So how do we get buy-in for the book reviews? So I tend to think that, so a lot of times I get reviews from like the same people. So like every quarter I'll see, oh, they've submitted a review again, you know? So some people I think are just kind of like wanting to share with that. We've also in the past done like different kind of contests to promote the reviews. So we have like, in the past, we've done sort of these like social media campaigns during the summer to promote recreational reading. And we'd say, you know, submit 5 book reviews like over the period of summer and get entered to win this in a raffle. And I would get a lot of reviews that way, especially from students. And also too from like parents who are on the social media, just like, oh, I'm going to win this thing at the library. So that I also too am very much like a word of mouth, like anytime I'm on campus, like, and someone says, oh, you work in the library? I just read the best book. And I'm like, really? And they start telling me about it. And I said, could you just write like 3 sentences about that and email it to me? I'll put it up on the review shelf. And they do it. And this is like faculty all across, like I'll be, you know, going to the gym to a yoga class and like talking with someone about a book they read. And I was like, can you write a quick review? And they love, I mean, I feel like if you've read a great book, chances are you're going to be really willing just to write, 3 sentences, not have to be long, right? Just to share that with somebody else. Cause it's such a joy, right? When you've read like a really great book, you want to share it with people. So that's part of it. So I haven't worked too hard. And the nice thing about the reviews is you can reuse them. So I work with our public services team. And when people go to check out the ZSR reviews and it's got the review on the front, they'll like pull them off and save them. So I can like put them back up if they come in. But we've amassed, there are so many reviews. I kind of have to go through them because we're getting to the point now where they're like kind of like there's too many and I sort of have to maybe curate them a little bit. But yeah, and we do like we'll put together reviews like if I'm like, oh, Halloween's coming up and have you guys read any great like horror or spooky books? And I'll send out the email to like the library or I'll ask our ambassadors and people will submit like quick little reviews and titles that way. So yeah, I'm always trying to find new ways to sort of pitch it though, because I mean, I think it's more fun when we see like a variety of reviews coming across campus. And that's why I was really happy when I saw reviews coming in from like alumni and parents. I'm like, they're not like on campus, like most of them, right? So they're finding this like other ways, which is great. Thank you for that question. All right. Yes.
Information of digital lockers or the white machines you had books in, where do you get them? I think you said you were a grant or something.
Yeah. Okay. So we just got asked about information about our digital lockers, like how to get them, what are the funding, that kind of thing. Did you take that one?
So the white lockers for the little free libraries are actually library box, and there's a link in the slide deck under the resource. There's a link to the library box to do that. Now the digital lockers are a whole different thing. I could hook you up with our public services team if you're interested in that, but the library box, yeah, is a link there. One thing I forgot about when it comes to buying books for the blind date with a book or little free library, if you don't have a good advanced reader copy system, is your used bookstore, right? We wore out McKay's in the early days because you can take a $20 bill and go a long way. And, some of those, they weren't always the most beautiful book, right? But stuff people want to read, right? It works.
And so did you have a question here in the front? Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, to clarify, like for our little free libraries, we don't actually put like items from our collection in there. And that's true. We use advanced reader copies or donated books so people can just take them. They don't have to worry about returning them. Yeah. And all of our, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So that's like almost 24-hour service for the actual. Okay.
Yeah. And so our smart lockers are like a 24-hour service for book pickup. Yeah. Or yeah, anything that's on reserve from the collection. Yeah.
You talk about the feedback from other libraries or something. Do you have any feedback from your students or your community with the little free library?
Oh, do you want to take that one? The question was about feedback from the community about the little free libraries.
The only feedback we've got is that we keep having to put more books in. That's really it, right? We haven't seen ours getting cleared out. Do you know what I mean? Like when I say they're empty, I don't mean that they're like, that they've been, and advanced reader copies are usually marked not for resale all over them excessively. If you've noted, they'll excessively sticker them to say not for resale. So that's another advantage we have with using advanced reader copies. And I will tell you, I would not have thought in a million years that Bookmarks would give us as many books as they do. And I would have never thought to ask, and our head of special collections and archives happens to, I think at the time was serving some sort of role on the board or something. And she said, oh yeah, we got boxes of these things, call so-and-so. And I call so-and-so, and now about every 2 months, I get a phone call or a text or an email that's like, can you come pick up 7 boxes tomorrow? Right? Yeah. So I'm just saying, if you've got an independent bookstore, be bold and ask.
Yeah. And we've, just to kind of add on that, we've purposely too, like been really like anytime we put on Blind Date with a book, they're right there. Like we want to thank, this bookstore for supplying advanced reader copies. We're very transparent. We give shouts out to them on social media. Yeah, we made a stamp that basically says this book is coming from your local independent bookstore. Yeah, it's kind of like this really nice symbiotic relationship that seems to be working out. Like we're getting great resources from them, and these are like really great diverse titles. So it's not like, all one kind, like it spans all different kinds of genres, and they do a really good job. I think they're also committed to diversity within literature, diversity of voices, genres, topics. So it really makes our job pretty easier. And this is not how things started out. We kind of had to figure this out. So I would encourage you, like, if you're interested in doing this, I would reach out to, there's independent bookstores in your area, or even just bookstores. I don't know what, the large box ones, if they get advanced reader copies, if they'd be willing to give those up, but they can't resell them. So I think they're just tossing them out anyway. Question in the back, and then right here. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Question in the chat. Any other tips for writing descriptions for blind date with a book? Yes. So NoveList is a great tool. Like I said, also too, just like reading the blurbs kind of in the book cover, going to Goodreads, checking out the reviews on Amazon. And I also too, like, tell students, like, you don't have to, you're not writing like an essay, like just a few quick, you kind of want to keep it a little mysterious, but you want to give the reader a sense for what it is they're picking up. So, genre, what are some, like, themes that you can really kind of pull out? Is it a read alike? Like, could you say, oh, if you really liked this book, you should try this, or a movie tie-in, or any way to sort of get a sense for, there is a person that wants to read this book. What are you going to say to get them to pick it up? Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here and then there. Sorry. We have not. So the question was, have you ever considered reaching out directly to publishers to get the ARCs? We have not. Oh, okay. There's someone here that says that they do that. You get a... Oh, nice. All right. So it is confirmed that we have a few publishers that are willing to send ARCs to people. That's great. Yeah. No, it's fine.
I work in a community college. I'm getting kids in the library for people. So I wonder if that little free library increases circulation. Do you have any clue? And it's funny because they don't go to the library to check out books. They're free to. You know what I mean? They don't have to pay for that. But once you give something away, they will just want it. So I just don't get like they don't go to the library. Yeah.
So we have a question. I'm just repeating this for the virtual attendees. So we have a question about, they work in a community college. They're concerned about not having a strong presence in the library from students, and like how to bring them into the library. And the question was if we have any data to support the fact that our free little libraries bring students into the library, and we do not. But do you want to talk a little bit about? I feel like our library gets a lot of use, and we do a lot of things in the library to bring students in that's aside from the studying and the space that supports their work forest lifestyle. You go.
So we are really fortunate because we had some amazing deans at the ZSR library who understood that moving student-facing services into the library was the way to go. So our writing center is in the library. We have a fabulous local coffee shop that's in the library. We have an auditorium. We have the bridge. So our IS support, because we've moved IT off-site, but the IT support, we call it information systems, they're actually in our building. So there are all these various reasons for people to come to our building, right? So we get a lot of foot traffic, which we're really fortunate in that way. But I don't have a better answer than that. I will tell you that one of my pet peeves, I have a lot of pet peeves. If there were a soapbox, I'd stand up on it. Anytime I hear a student, we have a whole, the students who give the tours of campus to all the prospective students kind of thing, right? And they will talk about how the library rents books. And I am like, excuse me, right? that I get into all kinds, because I'm like, I will stop a tour in its tracks to explain that we do not rent books, right? We loan, right? This, anyway, that drives me crazy.
Yeah. We've all got that librarian pet peeve. All right. Yeah, here. Okay. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it really quickly for the virtual people. Sorry. So there's a question about seeing the model where libraries wrap up books from the collection for blind date with a book, where they leave a thing for the barcode, and if why we decided or what that model looks like. And we are going to send that over there to Vicky from Elon to respond.
So we also use books from our collection and we wrap the book. Our barcodes are type back cover. What we do is we write the number of the barcode on the back of the book and record those ourselves. Just look it up by the barcode number.
Yeah, so we saw that model working so well. Like, again, this was like an idea that kind of our library fellow was working, kind of did the initial one, and they were all donated books at first. So it's always been kind of like, and that whole idea of like, we know that students are, we know that they're tasked with a lot of focus on their coursework during the semester. So they might not have time to read this great like mystery that they pulled up, or this great, nonfiction work that they've been wanting to read. But if they could take it with them, they might read it over the break, or they might read it over the summer. Yeah. So sorry, I forgot to say that question. But the question was basically like, why we chose to go the ARC way instead of books from our collection. But we do try, like the ZSR reviews, I wish I'd brought the numbers, but we do see like increased circulation in our materials that way. So, yeah.
And just to add on to that, what was your name? Maria. It's exactly what Maria said, which is people love free stuff.
Yeah.
It's exactly what, seriously, there's just some cachet around free stuff that we figure if we can leverage it, why not leverage it, right? But the other model's awesome too, right? The other model's awesome too.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a question about, for the librarians that are getting boxes of ARC sent to them from publishers, like how they do that. And what's your Baker and Taylor, their distributor will send them. And which library are you at? Okay, Onslow County Public Library. Thank you. Oh. Yeah, we're both academic librarians. Yeah, we work at Wake Forest University. Yeah, but these are things you could do in any library and for any ages, right? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Please feel free to contact us, reach out. We're happy to share, if there's things we can share to help make this a success at your library, we'd be happy to do that. Did you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, we had a library. How do we feel about library vending machines? We had a library vending machine for a minute.
Yeah.